All right, welcome into this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast. Corey Moen, Evan Bernd. Evan, how we doing?
Doing well. The streak is back on for the Bucks. Can't complain.
Streak is back on. Had to start another 3-game winning streak with wins against Washington, Orlando, and Brooklyn. Let's just kind of get right into it. The first up, Milwaukee had to quickly have a short memory as the streak ended last Saturday against the Philadelphia 76ers. Had a rare weekend back-to-back.
Mm-hmm.
Against the Washington Wizards, Milwaukee was able to win 117-111. Some of the notable performances, and we'll get into this guy in a little bit, but, Javon Carter has played really, really well. Kind of coming into the season, he was a player that was kind of marketed as a guy who could play tenacious defense, Mr. 90 feet, as we like to call him, and can make open shots. Not really much for offense. Well, Evan, everybody was wrong. Javon Carter, it turns out, is a really, really good offensive player, and he's having a career year for the Bucks. So what do you make of Milwaukee's performance against Washington?
I think one of the big things to note is obviously Javon Carter's 20 points. It still says for here that Giannis had a triple-double, but he did not. I really liked their consistently just to kind of stay intact. There's been a lot of recent games, this game and along with their 3-game win streak of blowing some leads that shouldn't have been blown. But I would say my big takeaway from this game is their 22 3-pointers. Can't complain on that. They've been hitting a lot recently, but I would say that was one of their biggest takeaways, 3-pointers, and then Javon Carter making 6 of them at least.
You're right about that. And look, I think everybody was hoping that Giannis got the triple-double, but kind of looking at the replay, it didn't look like he went for an actual shot. A lot of people thought that, the first thing that came to my mind when Giannis did that was, Ricky Davis.
Yep. I couldn't remember the guy's name, but I knew that play where he took it. And but then he went back on offense to then go play. That was.
Yeah, it was. No, and the weird thing with Ricky Davis was the difference between what Ricky Davis did and what Giannis did was Ricky Davis actually shot it at his own basket. So he get the triple-double. But look, it was a solid performance for everyone. Brooke, like I said before, he's really been playing hot in recent stretches. 15 points, 6 of 14 shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Ingles is playing really good basketball.
Yeah, he's been hitting the 3 a little more consistent as of recently. But yeah, once he started, he had maybe 1 or 2 pretty solid games, but his shooting for some of these games haven't been well. But yeah, as of recently, he's been hitting his shots down, the ones that he needs to be hitting.
Yeah, and he's a wizard with the basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is one of those games where you kind of close your eyes and, because the Wizards have traded a lot of their players. So now you kind of have to close your eyes and be like, all right, who's the main performers? Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis. Bradley Beal played, obviously took a bulk of the shots. He went 15 of 32, scored 33 points, I believe. And Kristaps 24 and 11 and 29 shooting. So again, it's kind of one of those things where, the Wizards now have a lot of young assets. So you just kind of have to close your eyes and just be like, okay, who do the Wizards still have?
Yeah, and I like Kristaps. I never was a Kristaps hater. I think when he went to the Wizards, that was just not a good fit for him overall. But I don't know. I didn't realize his shooting percentage until after the game, but he started off really hot. And he was hitting 6 of 8 shots or 7 of 10 shots where he was really only missing his 3s. But yeah, the consistently kind of dropped in the second half for him. But I wouldn't count him out as a player who can help with their future. I just think the shots, or they need someone else or 2, 3 other guys who aren't taking or who are taking his attempts away. He doesn't need to take 29 shots, I think, in a game. Giannis doesn't really even do that. I think he needs to be a guy who maybe takes like 20 max. But I think he's pretty solid, and I enjoy watching him. I just got frustrated because obviously he was doing well to start against the Bucks when they couldn't be making any of their shots, which is usually how it goes watching a Bucks game.
Yeah, and I think Kristaps can finally go to a low pressure environment.
Mm-hmm.
You get drafted by the Knicks in 2015. Obviously, anytime you play for the Knicks, whatever you do gets magnified. And then you get traded to Dallas. Then you get paired up with Luka Doncic.
Yep, in the start of his career, so you're going to get underlooked once again.
So, and then you go to Washington, where I'm sorry, but playing Wizards basketball isn't exactly a pressure cooking environment. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
It's not. The Wizards really haven't been relevant in probably over 2 decades. I mean, sure, they've gone on maybe 1 to 2 playoff runs.
Yeah, the Gilbert Arenas era.
The Gilbert Arenas era, even in 2015 with the John Wall era. But really, other than that, it's just Wizards basketball isn't really relevant. It's just kind of where you can go to hoop. I mean, Russell Westbrook had a good year when he was with the Wizards. Bradley Beal is perpetually still a Wizard.
He's committed.
Hey,
Hats off to him.
He's doing what Damian Lillard's doing for Portland. He's like, you know what? I'm going to try to win a championship with the Wizards. I'm just like, good luck with that. Look, what's really held the Wizards back is the fact that they've really been poor at drafting. They drafted my guy Johnny Davis as a lottery pick, and that's not working out so well. Who knows? He's got a long career ahead of him, so we don't really know what's going to happen. But the Wizards have they have good players.
Yeah, Kuzma didn't play that game, but he's having a better career, I think, there than he has in the past, especially with the Lakers. But yeah, they have the potential. They just got to get the right guys.
Yeah, and now they have a few decisions looming on. Can they re-sign Kyle Kuzma to a max contract? I think the problem hasn't been the Wizards can get talent or trading for talent. The problem is they can't keep the talent because it's just nobody wants to stay in Washington,
and no one wants to go to Washington.
It's like they kind of remind me of what the Bucks were, really during the Giannis era and even before the Giannis era. Just always like a middling team.
Yep, around 500 play.
Fighting for a 7 and 8 seed, just always just perpetually mediocre is how I would describe the Wizards. But you mentioned before, Milwaukee shot 22-49 from 3. Again, the 3-point attempts really don't surprise me anymore.
Yep, as long as they make almost half of them, I'm fine. But when they're doing that but making 8, then I'm not fine. I would say something to look out for, especially in that one game. It kind of changed as we get into the Magic game and the Nets game. Bobby had a little off day, but that's all right because Brooke was able to kind of hold it down point-wise for the big men. But yeah, 5 points, 7 rebounds though. Usually he's getting a double-double off the bench, but can't expect that every night. But yeah, the shooters came out for Javon and Joe. Drew and Brooke also had a couple threes. Grace had a couple threes. Chris didn't play, but he probably would have had 1 or 2. So again, a good shooting night, but too close for comfort for these last 3 games. But a win's a win.
You got that right. So yeah, Bucks able to pull it off against the Wizards, 117-111. So let's kind of move on to the next game. This one was close. This next game was really close. I wasn't really too worried about the Bucks pulling it off. It was really high scoring. I'll say that the Bucks were able to pull it off, 134-123 against the Orlando Magic Tuesday night. Giannis did not play in that game.
Yep.
It's reported now that he's dealing with wrist injury and then a hand injury, I believe it is. So Giannis didn't play in this game. Once again, Leroy Javon Carter, again, another big game for him, 24 points, 9 of 13 shooting. It's insane. the kind of offensive run Javon Carter is on right now.
Yeah.
I can't say it enough. Let's just get into it. Let's get into it.
Bucks
How
had a
surprised
different.
How surprised are you the run that Javon Carter's the offensive run he's on?
It's weird to think because again, last year the Bucks fans were mad because he wasn't playing a lot for the playoffs because of his defense liability, because that's what the Bucks were needing for some of these different series. But when you see that he's capable of scoring 20 plus points, I wouldn't say consistently, but it can happen. I think it's important to just kind of note where if someone's down, again, there was no Giannis and no Drew that game, so that guard position that he kind of fills in, I think he realized that he has to fill a role that he's not usually having to do, which is score and not necessarily run the offense, but scoring is one of the big things just as a liable starter. But it's just interesting to see a different side that we weren't expecting to get once originally picking him up from the Nets last season. And I'm all for it.
I'm all for Javon Carter getting more minutes. Okay. A couple weeks ago when the Bucks signed Goran Dragic, okay, I was kind of looking at what our current point guard depth chart looked like, and I said on my blog that I thought that Javon Carter, like once playoff time hits, he might get less playing time than he wants. Now I'm really not so sure because because he's basically said, Mike Buono, you're not going to take me off the floor this time. Okay. You're not. And it is something that I did not foresee coming because, when a player gets his first few years in the league, right? At some points he kind of is who he is. Like I just thought Javon Carter's a guy who can hit open threes and play defense tenaciously. And now all of a sudden he's like, he worked on his game in the offseason, and he was probably mad that he was losing all of his minutes to George Hill. So he was like, you know what? I'm going to work twice as hard on my offensive game so that I can add another threat to the Milwaukee Bucks. And now, and again, it could still happen, absolutely, because once you get to the postseason, rotations kind of get shrunk a little bit. And you don't know where it's going to come from. I mean, shoot, I've mentioned this before. A couple of years ago, it was Bobby. Last year, it was Javon Carter. Who knows who it could be this year? There's always going to be one player who sees a lot of minutes in regular season. Once the postseason hits, rotations get a little smaller, and some players who are accustomed to playing in the regular season probably won't see as many minutes in the postseason. So I'm just saying it could happen, but I love this offensive run that Javon Carter's on. I mean, shoot, he's having a career year.
Yeah, and a lot of people were talking about when the Bucks signed Goran Dragic, a lot of people were concerned that if he was going to start getting more minutes than Javon. But obviously Goran's hurt. He hasn't played yet. I don't know when his timetable is. I would assume soon. But yeah, a lot of people were concerned that Goran would start playing more than him. I feel like it won't happen how people think it will, especially if he's injured and coming back. He's not just going to all of a sudden start playing like 15-ish minutes to start at least. It's not going to just like start into like that. He's probably going to get the same Jay Crowder treatment, and I wouldn't say Myers Leonard just because, again, those two hadn't played in a while. But I would still say Javon's going to get more minutes or more minutes over Dragic come playoffs. It'll be a little interesting to see just because of what Budenholzer's going to go based off of how they're going to want their playoff play to be like. Do they want a more Javon Carter style, or do they want whatever Dragic is going to bring in his style of play, minute-wise?
Yeah, and as I watch these Bucks games, when Javon Carter takes a contested three, I'm like, it's Javon Carter time. That's basically what he
jumps in the air and he tucks his legs in, and he's a really good pull-up fast break shooter. I think that's something that he's tried to work on. He'll get to the wing and just pull up. Some games he makes quite a few, but some games he will miss a couple. But Yeah, if he's hot, he's hot.
Sometimes I gotta be, dude, you gotta stop shooting. Okay? So,
Yes, it's like Giannis, where it's like, just stop shooting at this point.
it's all the time with Giannis. It's like even when Giannis is in the game, he's like, "No, screw everybody. I'm taking the shot." Okay, you know
Like,
what he
oh
does?
god.
He Jared Smiths is what he does.
Uh-huh.
He's like, "All right, everybody, clear out. Everyone, get out of the way." Okay, I'm taking this three. Like, Devon, there's two guys on you. I don't care.
It's mine.
I'm taking this shot. Here's other games to note against the Magic. Chris Middleton actually started for the first time in a while.
Yeah, he did, and he shot pretty well, to be honest. Had a lot of free throws. I'll say
13
that.
to 14.
But yes, shooting wise, 5 of 9. But he also contributed 11 assists. I think that's something to look over outside of the free throws. Putting 11 assists.
And guys, don't let that fool you, okay? Because Chris Middleton is still on a minutes restriction. I believe he only played 24 minutes, didn't he? Not game.
This one he got to 30 just because I think he was starting. But yeah, he's been 25 minutes for the last many games before he was on that 15 when he just started coming back. But if he can do this as a starter without Giannis, hopefully he can help play make when Giannis is back and Drew is back as well. But now we know that Chris Middleton's still capable of scoring 20 plus points, not on a regular basis, but getting to the basket to be fouled. And he hit his free throws, 13 of 14. Can't complain on that.
Yeah, and I heard Coach Budenholzer talk about this. He said that it's going to be a game by game thing, how he feels. As you mentioned before, he got to 30 against the Magic. Sometimes it's going to be 25 to 30. It's really going to be dependent on how Middleton feels game to game. I mean, look, he had two, relatively, I don't want to say serious injuries, but those are two injuries that he had that can linger. Obviously, he had the offseason wrist surgery, and he had the MCL injury the last year, and then he kind of had, I kind of forgot now because it's like 2 months ago what he missed so many times. It's like he did have the ankle sprain against Houston a few months back. Then he had the lower body injury, so it's going to be just going to be still kind of a ramp up period, which I hope that doesn't last too much longer because the playoffs are going to be starting soon, about a month here. So
yeah, there's still time, but not a lot of time. But I see progression more than a regression for him. 100%.
Lopez, once again, another big game, 26 points, 9 of 14 shooting. For the Magic, I mean, goodness. I mean, the Magic right now have a lot of young talent.
Yeah, they have really good potential. They need one more borderline all-star player, I think, or all-star just in general.
Yeah, because Cole Anthony, goodness gracious, this guy's cooking us.
To come off the bench too. Yeah, he's someone to kind of look out for. I feel like he's underappreciated at times. People could disagree with me, but you don't really hear a lot from him. Obviously, it's probably because he's on the Magic, but you're also on the team with the number 1 overall pick from this last year's draft. So, and the Wagner brothers are doing well as well. So I feel like a lot of his performances get thrown under the bus because you got the brothers on the team and you got the number 1 pick on the team. But hey, I'm all for it. He's doing well. He has potential, and he's already shown his potential already.
Yeah, and look, I know all about the Wagner brothers, okay? Because both of them went to Michigan. I'm a huge Wisconsin basketball fan. So I know how frustrating it was to play against those two guys, okay? Franz both of them can really shoot the basketball. Got a bit of an inside game, but especially Franz Wagner, he has a lot of shots in his arsenal. So I understand firsthand. When you watch Big Ten basketball as much as I have, you kind of understand like what guys are frustrating to play against. I would say Franz was probably more frustrating to play against than Mo was, but both of them equally good players. And Evan, let me tell you this: it wouldn't be a Bucks game without a random big going off against us. Goga Batadze, who was considered an afterthought in Indiana. Okay, they basically just gave him away for peanuts. 12 points, 6 of 9 shooting,
8 rebounds.
It's not a Bucks game. Not a Bucks game unless you get some random big It's like, oh, this guy is not threatening, and all of a sudden, it's just up. Well,
Yep.
of
Shot.
course, we went off against the Bucks.
Can't hate.
No.
Love the potential on the Magic. The only one I think I'm a little concerned for is Jalen Suggs.
Yeah,
I feel like he's been obviously he had a 3-point game. This one didn't take a lot of shots, but just kind of overall, you don't really hear much from him since his college days.
No, and to be fair, he has been hurt. He hasn't been as healthy in Orlando probably as he was. Hopefully, with a little more development, he can, I guess, stay healthy. I mean, it's really hard. The injuries happen all the time in the NBA. And he is a good rebuild guy, a good piece to build around.
I was gonna say he has a good potential to help the team out a lot better when he's a lot more consistent.
Yeah. And again, I think Milwaukee largely won from their shooting percentage from the field, and their free throw shooting too was insane. They shot 59% from the field, and they shot 32 of 34 from the line.
Yep. Yeah. Chris only missing one, and who else missed one? Brooke.
So, you go 34, you go to the line 34 times, and you only miss 32 of them. You're going to win a majority of the games in the NBA.
Yeah, missing the 2 is quite well, especially with the guys who are shooting them. Because there's sometimes where Chris is a pretty lights out free throw shooter, and unironically, Brooke Lopez is too. But whenever they talk about how well they do, they always miss a shot. Steve Novak will sometimes jinx them. Lisa will sometimes jinx them, but it's good to see though that they're getting to the rim and they're at least executing their free throws, because some of the Bucks players, Giannis sometimes will not make the free throws that I think he deserves to make. But I'm glad they have that to rely on just in case they have a free throw line game.
I'm glad you brought up the Steve Novak jinx, because Middleton against the Magic had 3 free throws. And they were talking about like Marcus Johnson's like free throw record, or I don't know if it's consecutive free throws made or something like that. Steve was talking about it. He was like, yeah, Chris been really good for the line. And then on cue, he missed his 3rd free throw.
And it's something that happens all the time in sports. There was, I don't remember the team, but there was a guy who was like purposely talking about like the other team. I think it was Curry.
Yeah.
Curry was shooting free throws, and the opposing team's announcer just kept talking to potentially try to jinx it. But it's the effort put into it. But yeah, you can't jinx the free throw shooting. It happens all the time.
You can't. So, Milwaukee is able to pull off the game against the Magic, 134 to 123. Moving on to the next game. Oh, that's right. I didn't write down any notes for it, but based on what I saw on Thursday night, I don't think they really deserved it.
It was the Brooke Lopez show.
It was the Brooke Lopez show. Milwaukee was able to beat Brooklyn 118 to 113. Brooke Lopez nearly pulled off a triple-double.
Not with assists, though.
Blocks. He had 9. Brooke Lopez had a career-high 9 blocks against the Brooklyn Nets.
Had the potential to get 10 or 11 late in the game, but they were called fouls. And when you look at it, Bucks had already used their challenge, but it would not have been a shot that was overturned or a call that was overturned with some of the blocks.
No, I mean the call. One of the fouls was he had blocked Cam Thomas, but they found that he used too much of the body, so they called the foul on that one. But what was good was he was able to pull off a game-clinching block.
Yep.
Because, Evan, I'm going to be honest, this game was way too close for comfort.
Yes, this was the game. I think because I'll even say it too, where it's like you see the Bucks win, but it's like, oh, they almost lost to the bench, and people say, oh, this team has potential to go, and they're almost losing to these teams, but it's like these guys are NBA players, but the Nets have shooters, and when you have shooters who can make baskets, you have the potential of winning a game, especially if the other team starts to miss baskets. It's crazy how basketball works sometimes, But Cam Thomas had a good game. I was really hoping, just in general, obviously I don't want guys to have good games against the Bucks and pull them to a win, but Yuta, only 1 for 6 shooting, 0 for 4 on threes, which kind of surprised me because he's one of the higher 3-point percent shooters in the league, surprisingly. Obviously not as recognized because of the attempts he takes, but yeah, Patty Mills is one of those guys where he can hit his shots when he needs to, and I was really hoping the Bucks could try to figure out a way to get Patty Mills at the start of the season, but he went back to the Nets, which was unfortunate because I really like him.
So, kind of watching this game, I think so a couple of weird things about this game. So the Bucks right away in the first quarter went on about a 19-0 scoring run.
Mm-hmm.
They built a 17-point lead, and Jock Bond is like, I don't like the effort from these guys. So here's who they started the game with: Dorian Finney-Smith, Joe Harris, Mikal Bridges, Nerlens Noel, Seth Curry.
Mm-hmm.
Evan, only Nerlens Noel saw minutes after the first quarter.
Yes. Yeah, Mikal only played 12.
Yeah.
Joe played just under 10. Seth played 11. Dorian played 11. They both played 11:05, Seth and Dorian. So they just took out their starters and then played the bench the entire game and dropped how many bench points?
98.
98.
98 bench points is the most since the NBA started keeping the stat in 1970 to 71. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And look, Evan, I understand what you're saying. These are NBA players, but I'm going to read off some of the names. And I'm going to tell you if this should have been the crew to accumulate the most amount of bench points in NBA history. Okay. So you mentioned Yuto Watanabe, Day'Ron Sharp, Patty Mills, Edmund Sumner, Cam Thomas, Drew Smith, sorry, and David Duke Jr., which, by the way, as Charles Barkley's mentioned before, is a really unfortunate name. So that should not be the crew to pick up the most amount of bench points in NBA history.
Uh-huh.
It's not, okay? I like these guys. I think that if you play in the NBA, you made it. Everybody in the NBA is talented, okay? But at the same token, I think Milwaukee's lack of effort in the second half was one of the reasons why Brooklyn was able to come back in this game.
Mm-hmm.
The third quarter was atrocious. They got outscored 33-23. Could not make a shot. Could not hit from the ocean standing on the beach. Okay, and I don't even think the fourth quarter is that much better. If I could find where if I could quickly
fourth
find
quarter, the Brooklyn
33-31. So it was slightly better. But by the same token, it's like, you let the Brooklyn Nets cut it to a 2-point game.
Mm-hmm. I think they even tied it at one point.
Really?
Once or twice.
I mean, look, you can't have a big lead against the Brooklyn Nets. And Jock Vaughn is basically waving the white flag saying, okay, let's see what else you got.
Play the bench, and then here they come.
Really? Those guys. There should not be one player there should not be one player that the Bucks should have been afraid of. And yet they couldn't stop any of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I usually, the only times I'm going to know like an entire bench team is obviously the Bucks, because that's the team that I cheer for. Or I'm going to know the random role players who come in if they're former Bucks players. But yeah, I knew Patty Mills, I knew Cam Thomas, I knew, but I've never heard of Drew Smith or David Duke Jr. But I'm going to put some respect on them. Not that I'm like hating on them. I'd never seen those guys before. Drew Smith put up a good 7 for 13 shooting game. David Duke Jr. put up a 6 of 11 shooting. I don't remember if he was he's a guard. I couldn't remember if he was a guard or not. Same birthday. Awesome. Edmund Sumner, I had not heard of, or Dayron Sharp, I had not heard of. Obviously, people see there are people who are going to be like, "Oh, how do you not know who these guys are?" It's because I don't watch the Nets. Like I don't watch them unless the Bucks are playing them, and I guarantee other people in the league would not have known who Drew Smith was either, unless you were. Sometimes even Nets fans don't even know their own players. Sometimes, but I'll put some respect on those guys. They were able to hold their own in the second half, especially this first half was a little different, but yeah, second half was pretty good. They held it down. Obviously didn't come through with the win, but hey, they can hold their own for the most part against the top team. Obviously no Giannis, but still can't hate.
I can't hate. I mean, look, I understand I was hating on those players. I do, but I'm just saying you can't allow that.
Yeah, I totally
one
get
to
that.
score
You can't let
98
these guys.
But look, here's the other thing too. Okay, I think the Bucks offensively, really after the second quarter, it wasn't good. I mean, I'm reading the stats right now. Bobby Porter scored 28, 11 to 15. Brook Lopez 10 to 20, 24. Got nothing from our bench. Okay. Jay Crowder, I mean, I get it. He chipped in 11 rebounds, had 6 points. Javon Carter in the first 2 games, heaped on all this praise on him. Thursday, he didn't show up. 5 points, 2 of 12 shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Grayson Allen played okay. 19 points, 5 of 13 shooting. Middleton had a really off shooting night, 5 of 19.
Yep.
11 points. So, it was, I would say it was probably the worst game that Milwaukee's played all season. Well, worst game in a win. I'll say that.
Yeah, I will definitely say that. It's people again. That was that same with that Celtics game, very recently. But when you have like some people are like, oh, like it was you almost lost to their backups, but then you see 5 of 19, 2 of 12, 5 of 13, even. I don't want to say 10 of 20, but still for Brooks, still missing the 10 shots is big. But then you got like 2 of 5, 2 of 6, 4 of 9, where it's like, it wasn't like a back and forth kind of game where everyone was hitting all their shots. It was 26% from the field, 16% from the field, 38 from the field, 33 from the field. It's like, you're not hitting your shots. Of course, you're not going to do well. I was shocked they even won.
I was too. And here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that's kind of interesting to me is I don't think Drew was aggressive offensively in that game. He only took 9 shots.
That was annoying too, is they weren't even playing like they wanted to win, which is frustrating because people are going to be like, well, you always get to the point where they almost lost this team, but then you actually watch the game and they're like not hustling, like they're not going for rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
It was frustrating. Like I just want like them to just get a win and be done with the game.
And I think the thing that was frustrating was you could kind of see it coming because how they came out in the third quarter, Budenholzer right away had to take a timeout because this team was just playing lazy, plain and simple. They were playing lazy. Okay? They played like, oh, we got like a huge cushion against this team. This team is a inferior product currently on the floor. Like they treated them like the 2016-2017 76ers with how they acted. Look, these are still NBA guys. Okay, respect them or not. Okay, they have a place in this league just as much as the star player does. So for the Bucks to come out like that was atrocious, and I hope it doesn't happen again this season. And look, the only credit I will give Brooklyn some credit, okay, because in the second half they switched to a matchup zone, which, based on what I've seen this season, has always thrown Milwaukee off offensively and has really slowed them down offensively too. So I guess a win against the Brooklyn Nets, 118 to 113. I wasn't happy with how they played in the win, but win's a win.
A win's a win.
So this is gonna be that's it for the game recaps. This is going to be a shorter podcast episode because, there wasn't just as much news this week as there was last week. So we'll get into a couple items here. Evan, first up, Lindell Wigginton is back on the Bucks on a 2-way contract. What are your thoughts?
I like the pickup, or not the pickup, just the re-signing of him. I I was a fan of him when he played for the Bucks the past, I think, 2 years, I want to say. He's just, again, a good two-way player. I follow the herd. Not as much as I would like to. Um, but whenever I see game highlights, he's a guy who's scoring 30 to 40 points on the herd. Obviously, that's not going to move over to the NBA, but it's a good sight to see that he's capable of playing at a high level and scoring at a higher level, but now being able to just kind of have a reliance just in case something were to happen. But I'm a big fan of it. I liked him whenever he was playing on the Bucks. Personally, I think he is a better asset to have than Sandro. Though I do like both and they both can play at a really high level. I think I would rather rely on him than Sandro going into end of the games kind of playing.
Completely agree. When Wigginton got minutes last year due to the injuries to George Hill,
Yep.
I liked what I saw from him. Again, he's not going to be like put up a big offensive output because Milwaukee just simply has too many weapons. But his defensive tenacity, that's what impressed me the most. I loved when Lindell Wigginton was on the floor because you knew you were going to get 110% effort from him every single possession defensively. He's a guy who can bother shots, who can just be aggressive. I compared him a little bit to Javon Carter in terms of you knew what effort you were getting from him defensively. The role I would like to see Lindell Wigginton play and the role I think Coach Budenholzer should bring back was bring him in for like 30 seconds at the end of quarters. Okay. When he did that for Thanasis, I'm not saying it's like a huge, like important role.
Yeah.
But it is important to give guys like, Javon and Grayson Allen a breather. Just give them a breather before the end of the quarter so that they can come out a little more fresher in the second quarter.
Yeah, and it gives you like a little end of the quarter pressure, try to hold them to not get a shot up. Those ideas, it's very small, but can be beneficial down the road.
Yeah. So so that's what I would do for Lindell Wigginton. And here's the other important thing too. Milwaukee still has one open roster spot. Assuming if they let Myers Leonard's 10-day contract expire, it's going to be basically between Myers Leonard, AJ Green or Lindell Wigginton now. So who's going to get that? And again, I would say it's an important roster spot because those guys can see mop up duty. That it's important for guys like that to see like mop up minutes. I was glad to see Lindell Wigginton back on the Bucks. Next up, last topic of the day. Evan, our friends from East made the news.
Yes.
The Boston Celtics are reportedly pissed off that the Chicago Bulls released Goran Dragic, allowing the Bucks to pick him up. Your thoughts?
It's interesting because you never know like what teams want who. But it makes sense for the Celtics to kind of want Dragic. Again, the Celtics and the Bucks are so similar with like their bench depth. People I think understand like the Bucks bench depth, but I think they try to like talk the Celtics one into more because they have bigger named players. But it's nice to see that I'm going to say like our rival team now, or the team that we have the most competition with late in the season, and then eventually into the playoffs, most likely. But to see that they also wanted him kind of shows that he is a asset to whatever team he's going to go to, especially at a high performing caliber team like the Bucks and obviously the Celtics as well.
Yeah, and look, Milwaukee has been wanting Goran Dragic for years. Okay? They wanted him back in their title run before he signed with the Brooklyn Nets. This is probably going to be a long time coming. And, again, and again, what Boston's saying was, or some unnamed executive was talking, saying like Boston, like around Christmas time, they liked how they matched up against Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think they thought they had a better team than Milwaukee does, but Boston apparently is not happy because Milwaukee can add this extra layer of flexibility to kind of throw at the Celtics, play him for 20 minutes, and kind of see what he does.
Yep.
So, I think they're being mad at the Bulls. It's like, well, geez, okay, so the Bucks added Jay Crowder, and now, wow, they added Goran Dragic. It's like, wow, this team is going to be loaded if we have to play him in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. And it's how they're gonna. I'm just curious on how Dragic's gonna play. I want the Bucks to kind of like announce when he's possibly coming back, just because I want to see him like get some consistent minutes before the end of the season in general. But I'm excited for it. I think it was a good pickup. The only concern is obviously he's like a little older, but he still can kind of pull his own. Again, they're not getting guys who are going to be averaging 20 points all of a sudden. Like they're not going to be scoring 20 points a game. But it's nice to just see like the additions that they get from these players that aren't in these stat books. And I think a lot of people underestimate some of these guys that other teams pick up because they're not scoring 25 points or they're not getting 10 plus rebounds or 8 assists. They're putting in things that aren't recorded. And I think that's helpful just in general. I don't care how many points you score as long as you can hold your own on specific positions. And on defense or anything like that, it kind of helps just overall.
Yeah, and Goran Dragic has been lauded for his catch and shoot ability.
Yep.
Which is important, when you have a guy like Giannis on the floor with you. It's just, Giannis is very unselfish. He's gonna obviously pass you the ball and expect you to make it. And Milwaukee needs as many 3-point shooters as they can get.
Mm-hmm.
They just need guys who can space the floor. That's why they went out and got Myers Leonard, Jay Crowder, Dragic, and that's why they still have Connaughton and Allen and all those guys, because you need to space the floor in the playoffs to win.
Yes.
So, Evan, you got anything else? We got a big game tonight against the Warriors.
Yes. Warriors tonight. And then Monday is the Kings. I'm not sure if Giannis is playing tonight. I'm gonna throw a dart at the board and say he's not. That's going to be my guess, just based off of like seeing him and like the wrist brace that he had. I'm going to say he's not playing, which would be unfortunate, especially playing in Golden State, or at Golden State. But I think it's going to be a closer game. I know the Warriors just got beat by the Grizzlies after Draymond was talking the talk about Dylan Brooks and stuff, which I thought was funny. But it'll be a good game. So again, Warriors tonight. Kings again on Monday. We'll have quite a few games, but next time we talk.
Okay. Evan, actually, I have an updated injury report for you.
Okay.
So, Wesley Matthews will not play due to a right calf strain.
I feel like he's out for this season.
I disagree with you on that, and here's why. I think what Budenholzer said is he's going to kind of watch his minutes so that he's healthy for the postseason.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Okay, Giannis is questionable with right hand soreness, so that's a game time decision.
Okay.
And the guy we were just talking about,
he's in?
Probable.
All right, I'll take probable.
He's probable. Again, who knows? We could change from then, but it's looking like Goran Dragic will play against the Warriors. And I believe the game is in Golden State, correct?
Yes. Yep. 7:30 tonight. I'm glad it's not like some 9:30 game.
Oh God!
But it's a weekend, so it wouldn't be as bad. But yeah, it's 7:30 tonight. But Monday is a 9:00 game, and Tuesday is a 9:00 game.
Gross. But so it's a huge game tonight against the Warriors. Obviously, a huge game on Monday against the Kings. Milwaukee needs to win a lot of games down the stretch.
Yeah, I'm hoping they can pull out the Phoenix game now that Kevin Durant's out. Again, unfortunate about the injury, but it was a harder schedule with some of these teams. So I'm hoping that can kind of help them have a better chance at winning. Just because they're, again, that first place is close, so you got to win as many tough games as you can.
Yeah. So Milwaukee, obviously a huge game tonight against Golden State, and obviously a tough road schedule coming up in the next couple of weeks. So, all right, this has been this edition of the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast, and we will see you next week.